Hey everybody, this is Sunko. Today is November 5th, and I'm really happy because today is Friday and I can have 2 days off. I'm so happy. I just finished eating dinner, supper, and I'm back here in Korea. It's now 10:50 at night, and it's getting colder and colder, and this winter will especially be even colder. Let me tell you what I've been doing these days recently. I've been really busy going to work, doing my own thing, doing workouts, eating good stuff. But mm, what really bothers me these days is my work. Oh, hey Moon, how are you? Hey. Your baby's here. Yeah, exactly. My baby's right there. Long time no see. Indeed. Yeah, last time I saw you was 2 days ago, right? It's been so long time, but I can see you tomorrow, which is really good. Uh, I just started streaming, so I've been talking about like what I've been doing. I should have brought some food to eat, but I forgot. And plus, I had a big supper tonight, so I didn't bring any. Instead, I was just going to talk about hmm, just random things. But even if for me it's random things, it could be categorized or like remembered as a good memory. um, if I look back and I'll be thinking like, oh, that was all good day, if I could watch recorded YouTube once I age. Hmm. Anyway, since I started streaming really late tonight, I'll be just reading a book for only short period of time. Tonight is Friday night, so give me a break. Okay. Oh yeah, indeed. Yeah, I didn't do workout tonight. Instead, I ate pizza and thank you, thank you. I ate pizza and I had beer. Oh, rarely do I drink a beer, but tonight was an exception because it's Friday night. So, mm. But I'm going to burn my calorie tomorrow, so it's okay. Giving me myself a reward. You know what I mean? Okay. While Knapp, Herbert, and Pencroft hunted or collected wood, Cyrus Harding and Gideon Spilett busied themselves in putting chimneys right, and they found the forge. And Imu, are you there? Just so you know, I'm going to read a book only short period of time. I'm not going to drag it long. I'll be just finishing it up soon. The store of fuel had not been made uselessly. The settlers had not done with the rigorous cold. It is known that in the northern hemisphere, the month of February is principally distinguished by rapid fallings of the temperature. It is the same in the southern hemisphere, and the end of the month of August, which is the February of North America, does not escape this climatic law. About the 25th, after another change from snow to rain, the wind shifted to the southeast and the cold became suddenly very severe. According to the engineers' calculation, the mercurial column of a Fahrenheit thermometer would not have marked less than 8 degrees below zero, and this intense cold, rendered still more painful by a sharp gale, lasted for several days. The colonists were given shut up in Granite House, and as it was necessary to hermetically seal all the openings of the facade, only leaving a narrow passage for renewing the air. The consumption of candles was considerable. To economize them, the cavern was often only lighted by the blazing huts, on which fuel was not spared. Of course. One or other of the settlers descended to the beach in the midst of ice which the waves heaped up at each tide, but they soon climbed up again to Granite House, and it was not without pain and difficulty that their hands could hold to the rounds of the ladder. In consequence of the intense cold, their fingers felt as if burned when they touched the rounds. To occupy the leisure hours, which the tenants of Granite House now had at their disposal, Cyrus Harding undertook an operation which could be performed indoors. We know that the settlers had no other sugar at their disposal than the liquid substance which they drew from the maple by making deep incisions in the tree. They contented themselves with collecting this liquid in jars and employing it in this state for different culinary purposes. And the more so as on growing old, this liquid began to become white and to be of a syrupy consistence. But there was some better to be made of it. And one day Cyrus Harding announced that they were going to turn into refiners. Refiners, replied Pencroft. That is rather a warm trade, I think. Very warm, answered the engineer. Then it will be reasonable, said the sailor. This word, refining, need not awake in the mind thoughts of an elaborate manufactory with apparatus and numerous workmen. No, to crystallize this liquid, only an extremely easy operation is required. Placed on the fire, in large earthen pots, it was simply subjected to evaporation, and soon a scum arose to its surface. As soon as this began to thicken, Nab carefully removed it with a wooden spatula. This accelerated the evaporation. Mm. And at the same time prevented it from contracting an imperimatic flavor. After boiling for several hours on a hot fire, which did as much good to the operators as the substance operated upon, the latter was transformed into a thick syrup. This syrup was poured into clay molds previously fabricated in the kitchen stove and to which they had given various shapes. The next day, this syrup had become cold and formed cakes and tablets. This was sugar of rather a reddish color, but nearly transparent and of a delicious taste. The cold continued to the middle of September, and the prisoners in Granite House began to find their captivity rather tedious. Nearly every day they attempted sorties which they could not prolong. They constantly worked at the improvement of their dwelling. They talked while working, Harding instructed his companions in many things, principally explaining to them the practical applications of science. The colonists had no library at their disposal, but the engineer was a book which was always at hand, always open at the page which one wanted, a book which answered all their questions and which they often consulted. The time thus passed away pleasantly, these brave men not appearing to have any fears for the future. However, all were anxious to see, if not the fine season, at least a cessation of the insupportable cold. If only they had been clothed in a way to meet it, how many excursions they would have attempted, either to the Downs or to Taylor's Fens, game would have been easily approached, and the chase would certainly have been most productive. Besides, Harding considered it of importance that no one should injure his health, for he had need of all his hands, and his advice was followed. But it must be said that the one who was most impatient of this imprisonment, after Pancroft perhaps, was Top. The faithful dog found Granite House very narrow. He ran backwards and forwards from one room to another, showing in his way how weary he was of being shut up. Harding often remarked that when he approached the dark well which communicated with the sea, and of which the orifice opened at the back of the storeroom, Top uttered singular groanings. He ran round and round this hall, which had been covered with a wooden lead. Sometimes even he tried to put his paws under the lead, as if he wished to raise it. He then yelped in a peculiar way, which showed at once anger and uneasiness. The engineer observed this maneuver several times. What could there be in this abyss to make such an impression on the intelligent animal? The well led to the sea, that was certain. Could narrow passages spread from it through the foundations of the island? The submarine monster come from time to time to breathe at the bottom of this well. The engineer did not know what to think, and could not refrain from dreaming of many strange improbabilities. Accustomed to go far into the regions of scientific reality, he would not allow himself to be drawn into the regions of the strange and almost of the supernatural. But yet, how to explain why Top, one of those sensible dogs who never waste their time in barking at the moon, should persist in trying with sense and hearing to fathom this abyss? If there was nothing there to cause his uneasiness, Top's conduct puzzled Cyrus Harding even more than he cared to acknowledge to himself. At all events, the engineer only communicated his impressions to Gideon Spilett, for he thought it useless to explain to his companions the suspicions which arose from what perhaps was only Top's fancy. Mm. At last the cold ceased. There had been rain, squalls mingled with snow, hailstorms, gusts of wind, but these inclemencies did not last. The ice melted, the snow disappeared. The shore, the plateau, the banks of the Mersey, the forest again became practicable. This return of spring delighted the tenants of Granite House, and they soon only passed it in the hours necessary for eating and sleeping. They haunted much in the second part of September, which led Pencroft to again entreat for the firearms, which he asserted had been promised by Cyrus Harding. The latter, knowing well that without special tools it would be nearly impossible for him to manufacture a gun which would be of any use, still drew back and put off the operation to some future time, observing in his usual dry way that Herbert and Spilett had become very skillful archers, so that many sorts of excellent animals, agoutis, kangaroos, capybaras, pigeons, bustards, wild dogs, snipes, in shorts, game both with fur and feathers, fell victims to their arrows, and that consequently they could wait. But the optionate sailor would listen to nothing of this, and he would give the engineer no peace till he promised to satisfy desire. Gideon Spilett, however, supported Pencroft. If, which may be doubted, said he, the island is inhabited by wild beasts, we must think how to fight with and exterminate them. A time may come when this will be our first duty. Oh. But at this period, it was not the question of firearms which occupied Harding, but that of clothes. Those which the settlers wore had passed this winter, but they would not last until next winter. Skins of carnivora or the wool of ruminants must be procured at any price. And since there were plenty of Moslems, it was agreed to consult on the means of forming a flock which might be brought up for the use of the colony, an enclosure for the domestic animals, a poultry yard for the birds, in a word, to establish a sort of farm in the island. Such were the two important projects for the fine season. In consequence and in view of these future establishments, it became of much importance that they should penetrate into all the yet unknown parts of Lincoln Island, that is to say, through that thick forest which extended on the right bank of the Mersey from its mouth to the extremity of the Serpentine Peninsula, as well as on the whole of its western side. But this needed settled weather, and a month must pass before this exploration could be profitably undertaken. They therefore waited with some impatience when an incident occurred which increased the desire the settlers had to visit the whole of their domain. It was the 24th of October. On this day, Pencroft had gone to visit his traps, which he always kept properly baited. In one of them he found three animals which would be very welcome for the larder. They were a female peccary and her two young ones. Pencroft then returned to Granite House, enchanted with his capture, and as usual he made a great show of his game. "Come, we shall have a grand feast, Captain," he exclaimed, "and you too, Mr. Spilett, will eat some." "I shall be very happy," replied the reporter. "But what is it that I'm going to eat?" "Suckling pig. Oh, indeed, suckling pig, Pencroft." Okay, tonight it's the end. Okay, I'll see you on Monday, and hope you have a great weekend. And peace. Okay.